with that squeak.
Welcome to Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God.
A podcast sponsored by Piedmont Road Church of Christ and Ministry League.
We're here to discuss Bible topics just as if we're asking Jesus himself. I am Paul Sperlin.
And I am Les Sandifer. We hope you will enjoy our relaxed Bible-based discussions.
Thanks for joining us as we think about and talk about all those things we've asked Jesus over a cup of coffee. Welcome to the show.
It's hard not to love the intro with all that clapping.
It's me. They're so excited. They're so excited. They're so excited about the show and what's going to happen next. And
yes,
it's about being, seeing the show last week, and now it's all about, donkeys and squeaky chickens.
Donkeys and squeaky chickens,
which I now have seen the video, so I now understand.
It's very exciting.
The hype. Oh yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. This is Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God. Thank you for being with us. I am Paul Sperlin. With me, as always, is
Les Sandifer.
And this is the show, and we want to thank our sponsors.
Piedmont Road Church of Christ,
located at
1630 Piedmont Road in Marietta, Georgia. Is that what you wanted me to say?
And lifeinchrist.com.
Okay.
Right there. So I think I'm right on this. The event is this Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah, it's June 7th.
Yes.
Come to the building. As you mentioned, 1630.
Yes.
Piedmont Road, Marietta, Georgia. And we'll give you free barbecue and all the information you need about the church. Whether you live in the community or anywhere you live, you're in town, come on by.
Drive through for barbecue.
11 to 1.
Yes.
Eastern Standard Time, God's time.
What happens if we run out of food at 12:30?
Then we start waving at them and say, it's good to see you. And here's a schedule.
Sorry.
For things coming up.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about our tribe, which is the College and Young Pros. We're going to talk about PR Kids, which is, K-5.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about our youth groups, 6 through 12. We're going to talk about all of our adults programs and our Hispanic ministry. And I think that covers it. It's a lot of things. You'll hit different tents and you'll get different stuff. And so all kinds of things. So, if you are coming, seriously, get there, and be patient, as we don't know how the schedule, how the traffic will go. We have ways of pulling cars in the parking lot, but we're looking forward to it. And that seriously, today's Wednesday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we got about 3 days, and it's going to be awesome. So come on, be a part of it. And if you want to stop in and see our rotation model, our expedition of Jesus on downstairs for our kids, come on in. Love talking to you. If you want a Bible study, we got that prepared and information, and you want to eat inside, come on in. Love to have you.
Yep. It'll be great.
Also, Ministry League at ministryleague.com. Download the app, go to Spotify, Ministry League, or lifeinchrist.com, and you can find this show and other shows
and others
sponsored by and looking forward to.
Yep.
But this is the show where hopefully you have your coffee, because it is called Coffee Conversations.
That's right.
With him and me, and 30 minutes a day.
And the title of this particular episode is Donkeys and Squeaky Chickens.
Donkeys and Squeaky Chickens.
Yeah, I'll give just a little bit of disclaimer on it. If you've not seen it, go to YouTube and type in donkey, and it'll probably come up chicken toy or squeaky toy.
Yeah.
Really, kind of the essence of the video is about a donkey that gets really excited when the owner brings him this noisy,
and he jumps for joy.
And you've probably seen the kids toy. When you press it, it's just a long, extended, noise. But the donkey
be very careful when you download.
Yeah,
make sure you're going to the right place.
That's probably true. But the donkey himself gets excited, and really, what kind of struck me about when we're talking about the idea of communication and conflict in a marriage, what really kind of struck me about it was how excited the donkey gets when he gets this toy.
Right.
And really the reaction to it. And sometimes that's what we're looking for in our relationships, is to do those things for the other that makes them happy, brings them joy, and not brings, really doesn't bring them down. And the other part, I mentioned it on the last show, was not to also, kind of tune out our spouse like they're the squeaky chicken, if you will.
Yeah.
Because we don't want that to happen.
No, they matter. They count just like you do. So,
but it's
good stuff.
The video in particular that I showed Paul's a couple minutes long, and it's
funny.
It's funny and it's cute. And
it is.
Nice. If you like, if you like donkeys, they sound so heartwarming and pitiful anytime they start talking, right? Because when they start making their noise, it's just, you almost want to go, oh, poor thing.
But then he makes the noise himself.
And then he makes the noise and he does his thing. Back on to marriages. We left the other episode asking the question of what causes conflict in a marriage. So let's just get into it.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's talk about this stuff.
What really causes it? I mean, really, if you go out and look at what causes the biggest issues with couples and really what drives separation in a lot of cases, I mean, there are 2 or 3 really important things, finances being one of them.
Right.
Kids can be somewhat that part of it. Sex can be part of it. But really, I think ultimately it's letting your lives drift apart,
right,
through some other means, right?
I think being together matters, and spending time together matters. And sometimes things happen where you can't. If you're both working jobs, and if you have kids, there are things that get in. I'm not saying they get in the way, but they become factors that you have to balance.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So the same is true with other things that happen, whether it be like social media or extracurriculars or, things like that. So we have to be careful about that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about doing things together, and just kind of flesh that out just a little bit. If you're committed to the relationship from the beginning in a godly way, you understand that you two have become one flesh, as Genesis tells us the intent is, and then you want to do things together.
Right.
You want to be with this person, and you work hard to not let these other conflicts become so big that they keep you apart.
Right.
Because what God wants you to do is work through it. It's a rare thing, in my opinion, to see a couple that has been together for years and years and years, yet they rarely have fights or conflicts between themselves. The strong relationships are the ones that weather those storms and move on, right?
Oh, yeah.
And part of that's by just being committed to doing things together.
But when those things happen and those frustrations occur, you need to define what exactly causes you to have those frustrations.
Yeah.
But how do you work through it?
Yeah.
How do you express your frustration? And that's what gets into the whole communication part of it all.
Right.
And so I think you need to sit down and get a piece of paper, and you do a pro and con list, or however you want to do it, but literally write down, this frustrates me. How do I get through it? And I think you need to spend time. You need to give each other, 2 to 5 minutes each to be able to talk about those things and speak those things out. Doing this doesn't mean you have a bad marriage.
Right.
Doing this means you're willing to work on something that's working. So let that happen. And that's healthy. Yeah. And that's what this is about. We're trying to create a healthy atmosphere in your family. And so by doing that, I think part of it is the what Les is mentioning. There's a lot of things that get in the way, and being together is important. But like you said, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, it can get in the way.
Yeah, and you have to think about what habits that you're engaged in that probably need to be changed relative to communication. And that would be unhealthy communication habits.
Absolutely.
That you engage in. And sometimes that's a conversation where you get feedback from your spouse as to what that is.
Oh yeah.
that's happening, because maybe you don't even recognize it yourself that you're doing something that creates a real challenge for the other person. And you have to be willing to talk about it.
That's why it's so important to write this stuff down.
That's right.
So you can revisit and see how it goes. Spend an hour a week sitting down, making sure we're doing things the right way.
Yeah.
And communicating together. The together part's the main focus of today's show.
Yeah.
It is really doing things together.
Yeah.
And not allowing something to get between the two of you.
And then going your separate ways to satisfy life, you know, without each other.
The moment in which you plan vacations apart and trips apart on a consistent basis is when you have trouble.
Yeah.
Don't say, well, Paul, we got a golf weekend. I'm going, that's one thing.
Right.
But when you are consistently trying to figure out ways to not be together, that is a what do you call that?
A red flag.
That's a red flag.
It's a big red flag.
That's a red flag for sure.
Yeah, that's when you throw up the red card in soccer, right?
That's right. That's right.
And kick that particular attitude out the door.
So with that, and we have this document, we're talking about what frustrates us. We're talking about communication habits.
Yeah. I
think we're also need to be talking about, how do you feel heard? How do you feel understood in our communication? I think you keep with that document and share it. Maybe it's something that's not necessarily a physical paper and pen. Maybe it's a document on your cell phone, on a computer, or something you revisit that you can go back and look at to help keep that, foster that relationship, because it's a reminder. You want something like if there's a verse you want to live by, you write it down, you put it in the corner of your mirror, because you're always going to let mirror to see that thing. Do something, figure out a way to relate, to bring you towards your spouse on the daily. Don't create things where you want to be away from them. That's not good. We're back to the together thing.
Yeah. And when you talk about communication, in conversation with somebody recently, the comment was made, we talk all the time, we're constantly communicating. And part of the conversation was understanding that appropriate communication doesn't ultimately just mean talking to each other. Sometimes appropriate communication is talking about things that are challenging. So, if you're in a good space with somebody and you're just having normal dialogue, that's great. And that's a huge part of the process. But then something enters into the equation that creates conflict. Now communication takes on a new meaning.
Yeah.
And so, understanding how you're communicating one another, you have to include all of those pieces into it.
Right.
Which is grief or anger or frustration. When you're communicating, then Paul's right. How do you feel heard and understood? More specifically, do you recognize how your spouse feels heard and understood?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you need to find out.
Absolutely.
Or if you think you do, maybe you should ask anyway.
That's true. And really that's the key is asking and talking and saying, what can I do here? Or what, it's not just about, you never should start it off with anything like, you don't listen to me, or you don't do this, or you don't do that.
Yeah.
We need to be saying, what can I do better to help? What can we do to find ourselves to be in a more healthy situation? Now, as much as we talk about the together thing, I also think we do need an outlet separate.
Sure.
I think if your husband or wife has a friend, they want to hang out with them occasionally, I think you should encourage that. They need that to grow.
Same sex friend.
Yeah, because it gets weird. Yeah, don't let it get weird. But somebody you like spending time with, but at the same time, knowing at the end of the night, you're the one they're with, you're the one that you spend time with, you're the one that the life goals come back to.
Yes.
But don't stop the fun. If somebody wants to go do something, hang out, let them do that. Watch the kids while they do that. And I'm speaking from experience here. I think it's important.
Makes sense.
To let them have that, because sometimes they need that, especially if they're home with the kids too much or whatever. I mean, give them that outlet, because you're going to get them at the end of the day. That's the way it should be. And so let's make sure and get to that point to where outside outlets, work, hobbies, that's fine. But then at the end of the day, it's you too.
So let's talk about the things that when you're not together, that can start to put the wedge in there. And I'm just going to high level talk about
the squeaky chicken.
No, I was actually not. I was not headed to the Squeaky Chicken. What were you going to talk about?
No, I was
the
like,
Squeaky Chicken.
When you think about things that get in the way, it becomes a Squeaky Chicken.
Yeah,
it's like, wow,
that's a fair point.
I don't like that sound.
So you go to work and you engage with people there that become closer to you than otherwise, because
you spend 8 to 5 because you're Monday through Friday with them.
Yeah, if you're in a normal job situation, you can do it.
Right.
I mean, you spend a lot of time with them.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be careful that those relationships don't elevate to an
emotionally.
Yeah, emotionally to a place they shouldn't be.
Right. Keep it work.
Yeah, you definitively should not have a coworker that you confide in things about your spouse. You know, that becomes
100%.
It becomes a danger zone. It becomes a place where you're going to open the door to challenges in your marriage that don't need to exist. That's not the place you go to find, I guess, some feedback or some help or guidance.
Yeah.
It may feel like that's the absolute natural place to do it, but don't do it.
No, because you made a choice when you became married that is your person. And that is your person for I mean, for everything. I mean, at the end of the day, that's it.
So
don't find somebody else to be saying the things you should be saying the things to your spouse with.
So let's talk about family.
Yeah.
Again, that is not the go-to place to have a conversation about the person you married.
Right.
No. And it seems all so natural. I can't tell you in conversation when people go, oh, you got family, rely on family when you have troubles. The first place you resolve any marital conflict is within the marriage itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not with mom and dad. It is not with your sister or your brother. They're not your go-to starting point. I'm not saying they won't be involved in the process at some point.
You can't fix it with your spouse if you don't talk to your spouse.
That's correct.
You know?
If if your feedback is, I'm going to run to mommy and I'm going to ask mommy what to do about this situation, you're in trouble.
No. Absolutely.
And you will always be in trouble if that's your go-to fix.
There's a reason why we're told to leave and cleave.
That's exactly
Get
right.
out of there.
That's
Don't
right.
ever go back.
That's right.
You made a choice.
Yep.
Live with that choice and live with that conversation. That's why the dating relationship is so important. Is this the right person? You got to ask yourself, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life going to and sharing life with?
Yeah. How do they
make that choice? Live by it.
That's right. And how do they interact with their family?
That's true.
You know, what are you seeing in that relationship that is great or gives you pause or whatever?
Right.
Social media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, social media today becomes a huge unhealthy outlet for things that can affect the marriage. It can affect all sorts of things, not just marriage. But.
Yeah. Here recently, Caleb Sampson and I have developed a conference, if you will, a set of lessons about overcoming digital warfare.
Okay.
And what the digital world is doing and the fact that they're spending billions of dollars to make sure and give you certain feels.
Right.
You know, to make you sad on certain things or happy about certain things or gravitate towards certain things.
Right.
And you could replace, and part of the point of a lot of this is you are replacing relationships when you're spending too much time on social media, looking at all the wrong things, listening to all the wrong things.
Yep.
When you should be directing all that towards your life partner.
And you say something out loud, and 6 seconds later, something pops up in your feed that you're looking at on any social media.
Yeah.
It tells you how intrusive it can be in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I'm talking about if you play on social media much, because you can mention that you want a car.
It won't take long.
And the next thing you're going to see is an ad for a car.
That's true.
It's listening. It's translating it into things. It's just, it's one of those things that you got to be careful about.
Right.
Money.
Oh, yeah.
Finances in a marriage.
That's a reason for divorce.
Who spends what?
Unfortunately.
Right?
It's not a good reason, but it happens.
Oh, yeah. No, it's one of the leading causes.
Yeah.
That will cause a couple to want to split up can be over this subject matter.
So that being said, getting back to the premarital part of things in the dating relationship, don't enter into a life partner relationship unless financially you're ready to do this. Okay. I'm not saying you have to be rich, but I'm saying you need to be prepared and prepare properly.
And you need to understand each other's goals and desires relative to that,
and habits
as well, and habits.
Yeah. All that works together for sure.
And all of it plays into it. When we got married, we were both pretty young. And in fact, we got married before I had my first full-time job. So we kind of walked that path together.
That's
trying
love
to figure
right
out
That's love right
finances, trying to figure out how we were going to spend money. One of the things that breaks your heart when you reflect back on it is knowing when she will say to me, and she said it a lot. We've talked about this subject matter a lot, but when we were young and didn't, you get your first job and all of a sudden you think you're rich, and you're buying things and you're doing things and your credit card bills go up and all of that. And I can remember her saying that she wasn't even sure she could buy that pair of shoes because of what was coming in and going out. And I don't want to overstate this because we were paying the bills and doing our thing. But when you look at disposable income, and she feels like she can't buy a reasonably priced pair of shoes because, we've overextended ourselves. That's what understanding the financial piece of it. But the most important thing I will say to you is that at least in this one thing, we had to work through it together.
Right.
Because we weren't in a situation where one of us was willy-nilly spending money and the other one wasn't, and somebody couldn't control themselves. We were really a partnership kind of trying to figure this financial thing out as we navigated it. But it can become a thing that causes a lot of problems.
But both before the marriage and during, you got to put everything on the table.
That's right.
You got to say exactly how you feel about this and about that.
Yeah.
Or else you're going in there blind, and nobody wants that.
No.
You want to have your eyes wide open and be able to be ready for whatever comes across. And if everything's out there, there's no secrets, there's no problems. There's going to be stuff that come up because it's life. But it's a lot easier to deal with if you've literally put it down on paper and you know what is coming before it happens.
And let's hit one other thing about communication and conflict. How open are you about the things that people want to keep secret? Text messages, emails, what websites you go to.
Right.
We're in a digital age now. We talked about social media, but expand that to the idea that you shouldn't have things on your devices that you feel like she can't see or he can't see. If they happen to pick up your phone by mistake and opened your message app, are you going to?
How does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel? Right. We had just us personally, we had a kind of a discussion around the idea of tracking through your phone. I mean, the technology allows you today to know where somebody is for safety and security reasons and for other reasons.
Right.
So some people want to do it because they're controlling a situation. But we had to have that discussion because there are times where, you don't have to watch very many Datelines to know that somebody gets taken. And one of the best ways to find out where they are is to track their phone.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of things that play into this, being open and honest and communicating and avoiding conflict in a marriage.
Yeah. On the social media front, you don't ever know who you're talking to.
No.
Catfishing is a real thing, and you just don't know who you're talking to. So that's why it comes back to knowing what you're doing and make sure your spouse knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
For backup, if for no other reason, and so I think that's important.
And it might probably feels like this show's gone, in multiple directions, but they all kind of circle back around to the same basic idea of how you communicate
and eliminating the bad stuff
and eliminating the
best you can.
Yeah, as best you can. And all of these things play into it. You'll think of some others. I'd love for you to send us an email or drop us a text or do something that says, hey, when you were talking about it, I thought about this.
Yeah.
Because clearly you can't cover everything here.
That's true.
But I mean, in its essence, it's really about being an active listener in your relationship and being willing to do that with the other person.
Both sides a chance to speak.
That's right.
And really say what they feel and let them know that this is a safe space. Spend your time to say what you need to say, and I will do the same. Yeah. And let's pray about it. And especially if something really has become, which has really become a breaking point, not a breaking point, but just before that, you need to be able to have a safe space to be able to have those discussions to roll through it and create a covenant, a conflict covenant situation to where you understand how these arguments work and to get through it and to get past it, because God's going to bless you, but you've got to look for him for the answers.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to this podcast.
And that's good.
More than once for my own personal benefit.
Me too. We
all right.
Appreciate y'all so very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. We'll do it again in a week.
And thanks to the donkey and the Squeaky chicken for giving us all the things we needed to say what we need to say today. For Les Sandifer, I am Paul Sperlin. This has been the Les and Paul Show, 30 Minutes for God, Coffee Conversations. Drink up that coffee. And we look forward to being with you over that next cup of coffee. Thank you for watching Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God. For Les Sandifer, I'm Paul Sperlin. This has been the show. A big thank you to our sponsors, Piedmont Road Church of Christ. Find them at lifeinchrist.com. Also, ministryleague.com. Find all the resources, the songbook, and everything you need there, and all the podcasts right there at ministryleague.com. And also Citadel Bible Institute at citadelbible.net. Cast your nets to learn how to preach, teach, connect, and do ministry. We hope that you will tune in next week for another installment of Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to being with you over that next cup of coffee.